Okay, today we're going to unpack Embedded Assessment 1 from Unit 2. So I'd like you to take out your SpringBoard textbook or go to the SpringBoard digital textbook and go to page 140. On page 140, you will see the rubric and how you will be graded for the embedded assessment. And the embedded assessment is to write a short story. So let's go ahead and look at the assignment. So your assignment is to write an original narrative from real or imagined events or experiences. It could be an original narrative. Original narrative would be a nonfiction piece. Nonfiction is not fake, so it is not made up. Or it can be an imagined experience or imagined events, and that would be considered fiction, and fiction is fake. So that's up to you. Do you want your short story to be a nonfiction piece about your life or experiences in your life, or would you like your short story to be a fiction piece, which is made up about any character that you would like and any genre that you would like? All right, let's continue with the assignment. Your story must include a variety of narrative techniques. Narrative techniques, and those can be many things. Dialogue is also included in narrative techniques. The plot structure and how elements are sequenced are included in narrative techniques. Some other narrative techniques you could include would be foreshadowing, point of view, figurative language, imagery, symbolism, and or irony. So any of these narrative techniques would be fantastic to include into your short story. Actually, to get a higher score, you must include them. You must also have effective details. So your story must be written with much description. And it must be well structured, and you must have a well structured sequence of events. So it can't just be all over the place. It has to follow a sequence of events. Okay, now you have the assignment. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rubric. Now, when looking at the rubric, I like to pay attention to the proficient column. Notice there are 4 columns. We have the exemplary, that's going to be like an A plus. We have proficient, which is a B, right around a B. Emerging, which is usually a C to a D, and then incomplete is usually a D to an F. So we like to focus, or I like to focus on the proficient categories. All right, so let's look at your rubric and look at the proficient category, and what we need to figure out are what are the aspects of the proficient category on this rubric must you include in order to get or to earn a proficient score. So we look at this and we say, okay, the narrative, it generally focuses on setting, character, events, ideas, and all of these things help to maintain the unity of the story. Okay, so the character fits with the events that are going on, and the ideas and the events that are happening, the setting, they all tie together. They all work well together. You also need to have, this is in the ideas column, you also need to have a well-developed conflict. Okay, so are we having a human versus human conflict, or are we having a human versus nature conflict, or a character versus nature conflict? Is it character versus society, character versus self? Okay, we have to have this well-developed conflict, and there must be a resolution to the conflict. So basically, you can't leave the story hanging. It has to be completely resolved by the end. You also have to have some great details. This way, the reader is sustained. The reader's interest is sustained. The reader wants to read your story. You must also develop characters that grow in depth throughout the story. So this can't be just a static character, a character that never changes, a character that stays the same throughout the story. It has to have, your story must have a character that's dynamic, starts one way, ends another, grows in some way, learns a lesson, and becomes a different person, right? The same person, but with a deeper understanding of self. Okay. Now we're going to go down to the structure category of the scoring rubric, and you must have a narrative that follows the structure of the genre. Okay, it follows the structure of the genre, and the genre is up to you. Are you choosing fiction, which will be an imagined story, or are you choosing a nonfiction piece, which is an original narrative that you have experienced yourself, right? Something you've experienced. But it must follow the structure of the genre, so it must have all aspects of plot, all aspects of the plot structure. The narrative will orient the reader, and you as the writer must include a sequence of events so it makes the whole piece come together. You will need to provide a conclusion to your story and a clear resolution to the conflict. All right, the last aspect of the rubric is use of language. So the narrator must use precise language when writing, and also, not the narrator, but the narrative must have precise language and sensory details which define the mood or the tone of the story. Mood that the author creates, right? The narrative also must have a range of narrative techniques. So we need to include narrative techniques such as foreshadowing, point of view, figurative language, imagery, symbolism, irony, dialogue, all of these things, any of these things. It needs a few of them. It needs a range of them. So you can't just only have point of view, right? What point of view is the story being told? It must have a few of these. The narrative will demonstrate a general command of the English language with conventions of spelling, minor errors. They do not interfere. All right, so now what you need to do is think about how would you plot this on this graphic organizer. So we have ideas, we have the structure, we have the use of language. So which items belong in the ideas category, which items belong in the use of language category, and which items belong in the structure category, and what are you writing, or what is your task? That goes in the center. Okay, so in the center is your task, and then what you will put in each of these categories are the important elements that you must complete or you must include in order to receive a proficient score on your rubric. All right, good luck. You've got this. Take a look at what you need to do to write a short story.